All right. So it looks like we are live. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Woodland Pools and to another Cardano Q&A live stream. So today it is Tuesday. Yesterday was a holiday in the United States. We normally do this on Monday evenings. If you are joining us here live, let me know as you're joining.
All right.
Cool.
So it looks like we
The audio is
are
working.
live.
Fantastic. Cool. Then let me know if you can hear me okay. Let us know where you're joining from and any questions you have. We have a lot of different stuff that we're going to go over today. For those of you that are watching on the replay, I'm going to add chapters down below, and we will go through this thing together. So today what we're going to take a look at is an update on the latest with the Voltaire Poll about the SPO voting on K and the minPoolCost. We'll take a look at that. Updates on World Mobile and what they've going on. A recap of Cardano360. Marlowe is now live on the mainnet. We'll take a look at that. And then the latest on the Ledger Recover saga that's been ongoing. So like I said, as you're joining, let us know where you're joining from. Oh, hey, Mark. Always good to see you, man. Joining from Sydney. Always calling in from far away. Good to see you, man. Sweet. By the way, Mark, are you going to make it out to Dubai for the Cardano Summit? I think you said you're going to make it, right? So I'm almost bought my tickets. Almost there. But yeah, let's go ahead and do this thing. So let's go ahead and jump in. Timestamps will be down below. Let me know as you're joining where you're joining from or any questions that you have. And in between these sections, we'll get to those. And let's go ahead and do it. So as a reminder for this poll with where we're at right now, we've been covering this for the past few weeks. But here's basically where we're at. So about 3 epochs ago, 2.5 epochs ago, Cardano Foundation published the actual poll for the stake pool operators to vote on. There were 6 different options that the stake pool operators can vote, and each of the different stake pool operators, well, not everybody voted, and that's one thing we'll talk about. But the option that they had was basically with the K parameter, which dictates the optimal amount of pools to either leave it at 500 or double it to 1,000, and then the minPoolCost to either leave it at 340 or cut it in half to 170. There was also the option to say that your stake pool operator preferred to abstain or none of the above. And then there was also the option to leave comments. So for example, some people voted none of the above because they would have preferred to do a change to like a naught, which is what affects the weight of the pledge and stuff like that. So some people decided to go that route. So where we're at right now, we'll take a look at the results of the poll in a second. The poll was published. The stake pool operators had 10 days, 2 full epochs to cast their vote, and we are now here in the redelegation phase, where this is where the stake pool operators all voted, and then delegators can then see how the stake pool operators voted, and it is now your opportunity as a delegator to first off review how your operator voted and see if that aligns with your personal philosophy of how you see the protocol parameters moving forward for Cardano. If you agree with the way that your stake pool operator voted, there's nothing you need to do. You can stay delegated to them, but since this is a weighted vote based on the stake behind each pool that voted, if your stake pool operator either did not vote or voted in a way that you don't agree with, now these 10 days that we're in, and we're about halfway through this right now, is your opportunity to redelegate to another pool that more closely aligns with your personal philosophy of how you want the protocol on Cardano to move forward. So if we look at the poll here, here's the results as of right now. With the way they came in, you can slice them a bunch of different ways by number of pools, number of delegators, declared pledge by the pool, by the number of SPOs, because again, multiple stake pool operators, obviously for one SPO would be multiple pools. But the one that's actually going to dictate the vote and the one that's most important for us to look at is the answers by pool stake. And we can see here the 6 different options that we talked about. They have a cool way here to group this by parameter. So we can see, for example, that if you, for example, let me go back. These 2 options is keep K at 500 and minpool at 340, keep K at 500 and minPoolCost at 170. So even though those are 2 different options, if we group them, both of them were just keep K at 500. So we can see these groupings where keeping K at 500 is winning out by a little bit over increasing to 1,000 when you combine them. And then keeping the minPoolCost at 340 is behind cutting it in half to 170. So again, you can kind of see how these different things break down. But these results, as I was saying, are not set in stone yet, because this is based on the initial votes that were done by the stake pool operators. And now, as you, the delegators, redelegate to different pools, the weights behind these votes will move around. So let's talk a little bit about this. We went into a lot of detail on what these different parameters are and how they work 2 weeks ago in our live stream, and I'll link that down below after we're done here. But as a high-level reminder for everybody, K is what dictates the optimal amount of pools in the entire Cardano ecosystem. And then what happens is the number K, whether it's 500 or 1,000 or any number, the total amount of circulating ADA that is currently out in the entire Cardano ecosystem is divided by K, and then the number that is left over, or the resulting number, then is the saturation limit for a given pool. And so right now that saturation limit sits at about 71.5 million or so, with K being at 500. So if K was increased to 1,000, it cuts that saturation point in half. So it doubles the amount of pools, right? So a larger denominator is going to mean that there's a smaller result. And so it cuts the saturation limit in half to about 36 million or so, which does two things. One, it then makes it that now any pool that has more than that, the delegators are past that point need to redelegate so that they don't incur rewards. What am I thinking of? Rewards penalties for being delegated past the saturation point. So it encourages the stake to get moved around. And so that way it makes it that more pools can then be part of that optimal value of amount of pools that are participating in the system. Voting to move from 500 to 1,000 is a vote for decentralization. So if you believe in the decentralization of Cardano and you think that decentralization is one of the key sort of identifying features that Cardano has, setting it apart from other blockchains, then you would be voting for increasing K from 500 to 1,000. If you think, you know what, we have about 500 pools right now that are doing the thing, that's fine, then you would vote to keep it in place. Something to keep in mind is when we look here at answers by number of pools, the total number of pools that voted was about 800, which I actually was really impressed to see because early on, this was like down in like the couple hundred. It was well below 500. And I said on that live stream, I was like, man, if we don't get well past 500, I could probably be convinced to leave K at 500. But a lot of stake pool operators showed up near the end of the pool, so credit to them. And this actually, I think, is now takes me to the other side of where I was thinking before. And now I'm like, yeah, you know what? We have almost 1,000 stake pool operators showed up. I think it would be probably a good thing to get the to have K doubled and get the delegation shuffled back around again, so we see what it looks like with a more decentralized Cardano. The minimum attack vector for people to be able to attack and do a 51% attack is now additionally spread out. So I personally am in favor of K to 1,000. The next parameter here is this minPoolCost. So minPoolCost is when the rewards are assigned to a pool, the pool operator charges a variable fee, a percentage fee that's taken off of all the rewards, let's say 1 or 2 or 3% of the total rewards. But the thing about minPoolCost is that this is a flat rate that comes off before that calculation even happens. So right now it's at 340. That means that the least amount, the lowest amount that a stake pool operator can charge per epoch in a flat rate is 340 ADA. Now, for large pools, this is not a problem because if you think about it, if there's going to be, let's say, 30,000 ADA that comes in as rewards because they have such a high delegation, they get a lot of blocks, so large bag of rewards, let's say. If you take 340 ADA off of like 10,000, it's a negligible amount that comes off the top. But for small pools, let's say they only validate one block, and then the total rewards for the whole pool is like 700 or 800 ADA. The stake pool operator being forced to take off 340 ADA effectively is forcing the stake pool operator to charge 50% in fees for that epoch where they only got one block. So this disproportionately affects small pools that are trying to bootstrap up and get bigger. And so I personally also believe that the way to go here is to move 340 down to 170. I preferred it to have been even lower, but this is the only options that we had. So that way the minimum amount that a pool can charge can be cut in half, which for you as a delegator results. So this results in two things. One, it makes it that smaller pools have a better fighting chance to become larger pools and be able to grow with whatever their mission is. And then for you as a delegator, this actually for you means an immediate increase in rewards across the board no matter what pool you're delegated to. If your pool is huge that you're delegated to, it is increasingly less important, or it is decreasingly important to you. But if you're delegated to a small pool, you'll notice an increase in rewards immediately. So of the four options that are not abstain or none of the above, for us at ASPEN, we voted for increasing K to 1,000 and cutting. So I'll say, to recap and explain, increasing K to 1,000 to push for additional decentralization of the Cardano network and get that stake to move around again that's been sitting for a while and go to some newer pools that have been trying to get up and running. And then in order to facilitate that, cutting the min pool cost in half to 170 ADA so that those smaller pools can be competitive, and for you all as delegators, an immediate increase in the rewards of what you take home. I will say that the people that were against this were for different reasons, but even some small pool operators were saying, if we cut this to 170, you know, we're living off this 340. If we cut this to 170, then how are we going to cover our costs? I personally think that's kind of a myopic view. Living off this 340 is killing rewards for small pools. The only chance a small pool has to become a large pool is if they can reduce how much they're charging and then do a percentage of fees so that what they gain grows with the size of their pool. So our vote, increase K to 1,000, cut the min pool cost to 170 ADA. So what you can do here is, now that we have sort of that background, we can come here and look at, let me move this over to here. What we can come here is now, and this is at adastat.net. Let me actually link this to you guys here. AdaStat poll results, current. This is the current results, right? Because the whole point is that for you to delegate, to change your delegation if needed, will change these results. So now, if we scroll down here, we can filter here by ticker. So for example, if we look up ASPEN, there we go. Cool. Can you see that at the bottom of the screen? Okay, cool. So we can see here that the ASPEN pool by Woodland Pools, the answer that we voted was K to 1,000 and cutting the min pool cost to 170. So at this point now, this is where you as delegators is your call to action. What you need to do at this point is, if you want to be an active delegator and participate in having your voice heard for the future of Cardano and for these protocol parameters, what you need to do is come to this link that I'm linking in the description. I just put it into the chat. Do a search for your pool and see how your pool voted, and then look at if their pool is aligned with your personal philosophy of how you want to see Cardano move forward. If your pool delegated the way that you would have wanted them to vote, there's nothing for you to do. You can stay there. If they didn't vote, so I will say that, I think that every stake pool operator should have voted. There's about 3,000 stake pools. About 800 voted, which is great, but that means 2,200 did not. So I would say at the very least, if your stake pool operator did not vote, find a pool that is more actively involved that did vote, that aligns with your philosophy. If they voted differently than how you believe, delegate to a different pool that aligns with your philosophy. And if your stake pool operator did vote and aligns with what you were thinking, there's no need for you to do anything, okay? So that's cool. And I think that with that, I think it's probably a good time that I wanted to take a second and say, and I want to be better about doing this. I want to take a second with that and say a huge thank you and welcome to all of our new delegators that have come in over the past 10 days or so. So all of these people that have joined us, some of them join us, obviously through the tutorials and the channel and stuff like that. But I'm sure that some of these people have come over because of this redelegation phase. So thank all of you that have joined us. I really, really appreciate it. It is truly an honor to be on this journey with you. Let's keep growing together. So for all of you out there as well, let's come out of here and let's, well, we'll leave this up for a second. And so for the rest of you, actually, no, hold on, let's do this. We can actually see here, if we come, here we go. We can actually see at pool.pm, a really beautiful site. And here's, for those that are curious, you can actually follow along here. Here's pool.pm. We can actually see on pool.pm in real time delegation changing, and all of these people are adding weight to the ASPEN vote to increase decentralization and lower the min pool cost. But what I want to say though is that it's really important that you vote with your delegation for some stake pool that voted. It does not need to be us. You can stay with the pool that you're with, but take a second, come and check out how they voted, and then make sure that your voice as a delegator is heard. This is a great way to show your support for your preferred stake pool, and additionally, keep in mind that anybody that runs a stake pool, if you want to support the work that they're doing, aside from a poll like this, the best way that you can do it, for example, if you want to support that we do here on the channel, and with the educational content we put out, the best thing you can do is delegate to the ASPEN stake pool. But for example, if there's a few different pools that voted the way that you would have voted, the best way that you can support your preferred project as a stake pool is by delegating to their pool. Any pool, doesn't have to be ours. Whatever you think for your vote and for what that pool represents in terms of their philosophy. Cool. So get out there and vote. Come and check and make sure that your stake pool voted, and then redelegate if you need to. Right now, we can see here, we are halfway through the redelegation process. So just now about, let me see what time it is. About half an hour ago, we had the last, we just had an epic boundary, and so we are now in epic, let's see if it says it here. We're now in epic 414. Is that correct? Let's see here. Rewards. No, that isn't updated yet. We're in 415. So at the end of epic 415, we are going to see this this poll conclude. And actually, to bring us back here to how we started this, that snapshot here at the end of epic 415 is going to be at that point when the vote is set in stone, and the Cardano Foundation will make a report based on those votes and those weights for the different stake pools and how their delegators moved around and voted in that way. Okay, so get out there and vote, make your voice heard. Really, really excited to see how this goes, and we will cover this again a week from now or 6 days from now, next Monday, and we'll see where the dust settled on this vote. All right, cool. Let's see if we got any questions here. Oh yeah, so awesome. Oh cool, oh man, so you're one step ahead of me. You are on your way to Dubai. You got your tickets all set. That is fantastic. Sweet. Okay, well I need to get on it then, and I will book my tickets as well. Okay, awesome. So with that, next, I wanted to do a quick update on World Mobile. They have some really cool stuff going on here. So for those of you that have followed the channel, you probably know about World Mobile, the idea of connecting the unconnected. I'll put a link down below with an overview of World Mobile if you're not familiar. But I wanted to show this is pretty cool. They made an announcement a while back about how they were planning on not just deploying in Zanzibar and in other areas in Africa, but that their notion of connecting the unconnected and bringing wireless connectivity and cell phone connection to the unconnected, more broadly speaking, is for anywhere in the world that has connectivity issues. And actually a place that has quite a bit of that is rural areas in the United States. And so what they did here, let me see if I can find it here. So so this guy is one of the guys who works in Zanzibar with World Mobile. And so he actually packed up a World Mobile, some air nodes, which is what actually is the sort of last point on the ground that people connect to with their phones. He connected some air nodes, and then here we can see, this is actually pretty cool. Let me find it. Here we go. So this is in Massachusetts. This is one of their huge aerostats. They set up this aerostat in Massachusetts, and then they launched it up into the air. Let's see here. Here we go. So they got the aerostat with a connectivity payload up in the air, and so what they did was they set up some air node connections. Here we go. So here's like a house out in rural Massachusetts. They set up an air node. You've probably seen them setting these up in Africa and Zanzibar. So this is literally one that was operating in Zanzibar. He set it up, here we go, Fremont, New Hampshire. The air node is installed, and I wonder if they had already showed this, but basically the way that this works is, I don't know if they're going to show, but whatever. So the point is that from here, those air nodes connect to the aerostat. So the phone connects to the air nodes to the aerostat, and then they can make a call. So this is actually really cool. They were able to make a call, an end-to-end. Here we go. There's a good shot of it right here. There we go. So there's the aerostat that we saw got launched. This air node is connected to that aerostat. His phone is connected to the air node, and here he's making a video call. There we go. So there it connects. He's making a video call, like a FaceTime type call, with somebody else on the team using the air node end-to-end. So really, really cool. This is what is live right now in Zanzibar and the kind of technology they want to bring to rural areas in the United States. So really cool developments from the World Mobile team and seeing how they're continuing to roll out this aerostat technology. It's really cool because we've been talking about this now for a couple of years, and we've been talking about waiting to see how the aerostats are going to work, and they literally just took the same technology they had in Zanzibar, and they're showing the proof of it working in the United States. So that'll be really, really cool to see how they roll this out in a lot of different countries. And we'll keep you posted on how the World Mobile rollout is going. ASPEN is going to operate an Earth node for World Mobile, and we'll let you know more about that when that is live as well. So yeah, cool. That is World Mobile. Let's see. This thing says I got an error here. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Let me make sure we're welcome back. Okay. ASPEN is going to great. Cool. All right. Sweet. Yeah, for some reason this thing says there's an error here, but it looks like we're still okay. Okay. Sweet. So then with that, I wanted to move on to Cardano360. So this is a community-focused Cardano360. I will link this down below as well. The whole first section of it here was dedicated to SIPS 1694 and entering the Voltaire era. We had some familiar faces, including Pi from Sunday Swap, who has put on a couple of remote SIP 1694 sessions. Let's, oh, okay, cool. Thanks, Vic. appreciate the feedback. Yeah, it was sometimes my OBS gives me like a false positive and says that like it's not going through. So I appreciate it. So anyway, so we had updates on SIP 1694 and the work going on there. So reminders there was the initial SIP 1694 Voltaire session that was in Colorado at IOG's headquarters. But now there are going to be some satellite events all around the world. Buenos Aires, New York City, there's all over. So in this clip here, actually, I can show you. I'm just gonna leave it with. So for example, here we go. So here's gonna be one in Bogota, and then they had people from all around the world talking about the events that they're going to be hosting around the world. Let's see where this guy is. Well. Anyway, I will link that for you guys to watch below. But if you want to participate in Cardano governance and participate in one of these remote satellite sessions, there's actually going to be 2 different kinds of sessions. Some of them will be in person, and some of them will be fully remote that you can call into. And that information is linked in this first section of Cardano360. So I will share that with you guys. After that, there was a really cool update on the UTXO Alliance. So UTXO Alliance, if you're not familiar, is actually really neat. This is, I think, is really, really cool because... Okay, so I've been a fan of the extended UTXO model for a while now because with the channel now, we've been going for about 2.5 years. And the more that I learned about extended UTXO, the more of a fan of it I became. And now that I'm developing smart contracts, I've become increasingly more of a fan of its deterministic nature and how predictable it can be and stuff like that. The UTXO Alliance is really cool where this is not other Cardano projects that are banding together. This is other ecosystems and other blockchains that either believe in the philosophy of UTXO and extended UTXO, or that their blockchain is using this under the hood. So Nervos is one of them. We had on here, I forget which of these guys it was. Here we go. Here's somebody from Ergo. Ergo is another UTXO-based blockchain. See if that loads up. Yeah. So he's a director. Joseph is the director of the Ergo Foundation. That's another UTXO-based blockchain. So what I thought was cool about this is that we've got now like a lot of different organizations, ecosystems, and blockchains that all believe in UTXO, all working together to move forward the education and interoperability of these different things. So I think this is going to be a really powerful alliance moving forward, where we see sort of different groups talking about the strength of UTXO versus something like an account-based model, and all working together to build out best practices for that. So I think that's really cool that is a continuing thing that is ongoing. Then from there was an interview with Lucas Barta, who is the CEO and co-founder of Sea Explorer, which is the page that you see us on a lot. Is this really beautiful page here to be able to explore the Cardano blockchain, different stake pools, and stuff like that. So there was a cool interview with him that I will let you check out, and talks about the history of Sea Explorer and how that came together. Then there was an interview with Gimbal Labs, and I wanted to finish with this conversation with Blueshift, which I thought was really neat. Blueshift is doing a few different things, but the one that I find most interesting that I wanted to share with you guys that I thought was really cool in this demo is they're also doing a cross-chain swap of tokens, a native cross-chain swap. And so they showed a demo here. Let me see. I'm just going to pull up the beginning of the demo just to show you guys, because I thought this was really neat what they ended up showing here. Because the idea, if you think about it, a lot of projects, including like Book, so I work for Book, and a lot of projects like ours are going multi-chain and thinking like, you know what, there's going to be a lot of benefits, a lot of different blockchains, so, and the user's not going to care what blockchain they're on, so how do we make it that people can seamlessly work between those blockchains? So what they're going to show here in this demo is how he's going to do a swap from the endmaker token on Cardano to Matic on Polygon, all through Blueshift without having to leave their website. So apologies if it's a little bit laggy as this plays through, but I will pause it here when it gets to the point where he's actually doing the swap. So right now he's pulled up the swap. He's going to select endmaker from the Cardano blockchain. This is through Milkomeda. And then from there, he's going to swap it for Matic on Polygon. So he's now pulling that up. He needs to switch chains to Polygon. Selects Matic. And then, yeah, I'll just pause it here. And so here, then he just then executes the swap with MetaMask to go from endmaker to Matic. I think this is going to be the kind of stuff that Charles has talked about this kind of stuff a lot before, where people can just show up and say, hey, I want to buy this thing. Here's the tokens that I have. And there's some facilitator in between that just automatically does the swap. and it's invisible to the user. This kind of stuff I think we're going to see building out quite a bit more. But this is really cool to see this happening under the hood. So yeah, wanted to share that. That's Cardano360. I will link that down below. Next, Marlowe. Cardano's domain-specific language is now live on Mainnet. This just went live, I think, yesterday. So I should probably do a dedicated video on Marlowe and how it all works. But at a really high level, the notion of Marlowe is that if you think about smart contracts, Accelerate, good to see you, man. Snake, I will say, I think it's very fun that Snake is a thing. I am not participating. I think anybody that watches the channel knows that that's probably just not my thing. But I'm happy that a lot of you are having fun with Snake. It is really cool to see meme. It is very interesting to see meme coins blowing up on Cardano. But yes, Snake is a thing, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. As other people join, for those of you that are coming in, let us know where you're joining from and any questions you have, or, you know, any shout outs that you want to do, like Accelerate and his Snake. So, right. Let's continue on. So, if you think about a domain-specific language like Marlowe and why it's useful, a lot of financial smart contracts that you would want to do are very, very common and very predictable in terms of their format. There's the same kind of financial agreements that happen between people over and over and over again. So Marlowe takes the approach of saying, hey, if these things are so repeatable and so common, then we probably don't need that everybody has to become a smart contract developer and learn all the details of writing a Turing-complete, fully featured, in a fully featured Turing-complete smart contract language. We can probably just give them a drag and drop or something that they can use, or some templates that they can use to do the most common smart contracts. There's a whole thread here on Marlowe and what it is and why and whatever else, and I will link this down below. Like I said, I'll probably do a dedicated video on Marlowe again soon. We did one like over 2 years ago at this point, probably. But let's take a look here at Marlowe. Here's their documentation. You can click on Blockly, which is where they have sort of their drag and drop thing. And then when you come here, you can come to Open Example. And this is what I was saying. All of these common kinds of smart contracts. So here's like an escrow with collateral, where there's a buyer and a seller and some collateral to make sure that it happens. A zero coupon bond, a simple loan. So for example, like I would, Vic would loan me 100 ADA, and then at the end I pay Vic back 105 ADA as interest for that loan. And so these are some really common things that you see all the time. And so they were like, hey, let's just have these templates already in place. So if we look at the zero coupon bond, for example, we can click on, you can either have it automatically have it written for you in Haskell, JavaScript, Marlowe's DSL, or Blockly. So let's click on Blockly. Cool. And so now, this does take a little bit of time to learn the syntax of how this all works, but you can see here how in just this little section here, it's facilitating this kind of very simple transaction where you have your lender, your borrower, the amount that is being lent, and then the different conditions about when it's paid, how much is repaid, stuff like that. But the cool thing is that this is all drag and droppable, right? So, I'm not going to actually change stuff here, but you can move these things around and change any of these values. And so again, you can do all of this stuff without knowing anything about programming. And then once you're done and ready to deploy this, you could actually, I think from here, you can just like deploy it and run it. Here you go. You can send it to the simulator and just run the thing. But then you can also view the code itself that it generates. So this is really neat. And I think that this kind of stuff is going to be really big. This obviously needs to get now, I think, one level of abstraction easier than this. But I think this is a huge step in the right direction in terms of making it that people that have finance backgrounds or business backgrounds that want to use the underlying technology of smart contracts don't need to become developers or hire developers to do some simple day-to-day stuff. Because it's cool that we have all these dApps and things building out on Cardano, but at the end of the day, blockchains, what they're really good at is transmitting value back and forth. And if we can make it that somebody can just like pull something up like this and make a simple contract or simple transaction, a simple sequential transaction without having to involve a third party, I think that's going to be huge. Marlowe is awesome. A dedicated video would be great. Yeah, cool. I'll have to find some time to do that. And what I think would be cool for a video like that is maybe we could start, maybe we could do like a tutorial and we could start with like a blank Marlowe canvas and then build out to something like this where there's like a loan where Vic is loaning me some money, and then if not, then he's gonna come after me and say, man, you better have my money. Cool, sweet. So yeah, I'll look into that. And Vic, I promise when I do that, I will pay you back. Sweet. Let's go ahead and continue on. That was Marlowe. And so with that, that brings us to the ongoing Ledger Recover saga. So we spent a lot of time talking about this in the past couple of weeks. I wanted to give you guys the latest because this AMA went live, I think, that same night or the next day. Actually, here we go. There's the next day after we had our last Q&A live stream. We talked about this in detail. But I wanted to make sure to update you guys with the latest of where this is at. So as of now, this is like a week ago, Ledger Recover is officially postponed. They actually pulled the firmware version 2.2.1 from their deployable firmware list, and they said that this will be rolled out later in a different form. A couple of things they're going to do here. They sort of double down on this idea that, like, guys, we have to have some amount of trust in the company that is deploying this stuff, like in Ledger or someone, just because at the end of the day, it's very hard for you, even if it's open source, to validate that the code that you audited is actually what's on your device. So you have to have some tiny amount of trust in the company that is deploying your hardware wallet. So I'm increasingly on board with that idea. There was some cool stuff they talked about in detail, though, about like when this is rolled out, it is going to be opt-in. But what the cool thing is that I think that it's sort of lost on some people is that when you have your Ledger, yes, there's like firmware updates and things like that. But at the lowest level, anytime that you need to interact with your private key, because the thing about it is I think some people that aren't developers maybe aren't familiar with, like, when you develop something and you build out software, any good developer will architect it in such a way that you've got these different little services or components or whatever, and they all work together. And so the way to think about it is that the part of the firmware that deals with the private key, the way that it works is that every time that any other part of the device or anything needs to interact with that private key, in order to get access to it, that section of it in the secure element requires that there be a physical confirmation on the device and then also a display of what it is that's actually happening. That piece that does that is its own sort of standalone piece that requires that every time. So then if separately they take another service, like something like Ledger Recover, that would give you the option to have your seed phrase stored remotely or whatever else, that is a totally separate service. I mean, it's all inside your device, but it's a totally separate service that would call to this section of the code that would say, hey, I need to get the seed to be able to do this thing, and this section of the code that requires every single time that there be a validation on the hardware would then just do its normal thing and say, okay, let me have the user confirm this is what I want them to do. So I think sometimes people kind of confuse those things where it's like the code isn't all just sort of thrown together, right? That the whole point of the reusability of like this area of code, for example, is that you don't have to rewrite this. Any other module that you add that needs access to this, all of them will be required to act in the same way. So I think that's a little sort of a software development design distinction that I want to point out. And so then with that, what they're going to do is the Ledger Recover white paper itself is going to be open sourced, and they're going to specify how that interaction is going to happen. And then additionally, for these shards, they're going to support the notion where you can bring your own shard. So Vic, let's clarify for your wife, shard with a D. That you can set up your own shards, and then you can, if you want, you can host them like on your own servers or computers or whatever. That will be something that's also supported if you want to go down that route. But the important takeaway is that it is going to be rolled out. It'll be later on, but they are going to still move forward with Ledger Recover. I don't think they have any intention of making a separate device or anything like that. So that's up to you on how you feel about that. I've been a fan of Ledger for a long time. I will probably continue, I think, unless something really bad changes, I'm going to continue using it. And yeah, we'll just stay on top of this and see how it goes. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I get that. Like that, I didn't see that AMA with Charles, but I understand that some people feel that way, that they violate a certain sort of like social contract of an understanding of what was going on. I don't know, man. Like, I get how some people might feel that way. At the end of the day, it's like we talked about like last week or the week before. All hardware wallets to a certain degree work this way anyway. I think that the part that I think I would agree with that makes people nervous is that even adding this feature at all, some people may have seen that as a violation. But that's kind of where it's sort of to bring it full circle on how we talked about when we were like starting this whole thing and talking about this poll, where as a consumer, you do have say in these things, right? Like you can't. So there's the difference between like a leading indicator and a lagging indicator. you can't like directly control what Ledger does. You can't directly control like how your stake pool operator runs their business. But as a lagging indicator, then from there, like with the way that works, you can then redelegate to another pool. You can no longer buy from Ledger, and that's a thing that you can do as a consumer of one or the other. So it's up to you. I'll continue using them, but not everybody will, and I totally understand that. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that this is something that I want to make sure everybody's aware of if people want to move to Ledger, to Trezor. And that being said, I have both, and we have videos on both. So, yeah, either way, any hardware wallet, I think, is better than not having one. So choose your preference. But I will say, at this point at least, none of them are perfect yet, right? We talked about this a little bit last week, and this has now been confirmed as of about 6 days ago. This is still true. That the Trezor Model T, which is the one that works for Cardano, and their Model 1 as well, can be hacked if the wallet is, if the hacker has physical possession of it. Like they actually stole it from your house and take it away. That is something that cannot be done with a Ledger because of the way it's designed with the secure element, but can be done to all Trezors currently. So the cybersecurity startup Unicipher claimed that it was able to hack into the popular Trezor Model T, which is manufactured by Satoshi Labs. They made a video showing how they did it. This is the same way as it was done before. I think Kraken were the first ones to show this a couple of years ago. This type of exploit is only feasible if they have physical access to the hardware wallet, so they can't do this remotely. They have to literally steal it and take it with them. And what they did was they uploaded firmware and extracted into the high-performance computer cracking clusters. And from there, they have 10 GPUs, and after some time, they were able to extract the keys. Here's the response from Trezor, and this is what I thought was actually pretty interesting. This is a direct quote from their chief technology officer. This appears to be a vulnerability called an RDP downgrade attack, and as communicated in their blog in early 2020. 2020 is where when Kraken first announced their ability to hack the Trezor. RDP downgrade attacks require physical theft of advice and extremely sophisticated technological knowledge and advanced equipment. And so this is a couple of increasingly good points I think he makes here. Even with that above, Trezors can be protected by a strong passphrase, which adds another layer of security that renders RDP downgrades useless. What he's referring to here is the way this works is when you set up your Trezor and you have your recovery phrase, it will deterministically, it will generate for you a seed phrase, right? What you can then do, there's an option. If you look at like our Trezor setup videos, we skip this in those videos because it's sort of an advanced option. I can probably make a video on how to do this. But once you get that seed phrase, you can then, whether you do 12 or 24 words, you can then add an optional 13th or 25th word, which is basically your password that you add. And so then what happens is, even if somebody is able to physically hack from the device the seed phrase that is stored on it, there's no way for them to know your, sort of N+1 security word that you added, which was your passphrase, right? Either word number 12 or 25 or whatever. There's no way for them to get that because that's only just in your mind. Now, of course, you run the risk of like if you forget that for some reason, you get sick or hurt or whatever, then, you don't have access to it. But yeah, so that's cool. Now, the biggest thing that they announced here that I thought was really cool, because for a long time, the main benefit that Ledger has had over Trezor is in the fact that Ledger uses a secure element. And that secure element is that chip that is a totally standalone chip that cannot be physically hacked or attacked. The Trezor doesn't have that yet. That's sort of their big edge they've had on Trezor this whole time because people like the fact that Trezor is completely open sourced. Ledger is moving more open source, but what they want to do is they're going to open source everything except for the secure element. Trezor is fully open sourced, but what they're doing here, we see, Trezor has added that it's taken significant steps to resolve the issue in the future by developing a new secure element for hardware wallets with its sister firm Tropic Square. And then there was here this press release from Tropic Square from a couple of months ago talking about their first batch of prototype chips to be able to have secure elements in hardware wallets. So I think this is going to be huge if this works out and if they can open source it and continue sort of with their full open source philosophy. This will be a huge competitive edge for Trezor. The sooner I think they can get this out, the better. That's the first time I've heard about it was in this article, so that's really, really cool to see. Let's catch up here and see how we're doing. They need a Ledger R device. Can keep the social contract with the S and the X, but as you say, in the end, trusting a third party, yeah. So Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing with this that I will say to kind of just like round off our conversation on the ledger thing. I, you know, how do I say this? I want to make sure that I'm correctly representing how they phrase this because I think they put it really well. To a certain degree, Ledger making like an Ledger R that has just Ledger Recover and then all the other ones just don't, right? Their CTO, I thought, put this really well. Or I think it doesn't matter who it was on the team, but one of their executives put this really well where he said, coming out with something like a Ledger R to a certain degree is just kind of security theater, if you think about it, because at the end of the day, you don't really know like what firmware is running on there, right? Like you think you do, again, but you're not like, unless you're going to like go to the open source repository, and even then not all of it is open source for Ledger anyway, so that's a given if you're continuing to use them. So knowing that, even if you could go to the open source repository, download the code, compile it, and install it yourself, for that last remaining part that is not open source, right, you need to just trust them that that part doesn't contain the part that you don't want there. So like, and I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this correctly, but like at the end of the day, even if they came out with a totally separate device that they tell you, okay, well, this doesn't have Ledger Recover on it, you still have to trust them. The Ledger Recover is not on there. So them doing that is a certain amount of security theater where it doesn't change the sort of attack vector or the failure point, for lack of a better term, is your trust in Ledger. And again, if your problem is your trust in Ledger, we're all in a lot of trouble here. So like, for me, it's an equivalent risk to either trust Ledger that they're actually making a firmware that doesn't have Recover versus trusting them that it has it on there, but they're only going to use it, you know, through their normal routes that we discussed earlier, where you have to physically confirm on the device to approve it, or if not, then it just won't get added to, like, it won't get activated. Like, that doesn't really change anything there, right? Like, you're still at the end of the day trusting that Ledger is doing things the way that they told you they're going to do it. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's clear. Like they put it really clearly when they were talking about it in their AMA, and I'll link the AMAs. I recommend that you guys listen to it. But all of this comes back to, at the end of the day, some amount of trust, something amount of trust has to be put into the companies manufacturing it, because they're literally building the device, and there's so many other ways they can put backdoors in here. So with all respect, like I respect Charles, you know, saying they violated the social contract. I get how people would think that way and why they might feel that way, but you have to have some trust in the company, and them just manufacturing a dedicated device, you're still trusting that they didn't put on there the PC you didn't want, so nothing really changed. You're still just trusting that on faith. So if you're trusting that on faith anyway, then just trust when they tell you that the code that you don't want will not run without your physical approval. Those are literally almost identically equivalent in my mind. So I don't know. Yeah, cool. So with that, let's finish up how we started. I don't see any more questions, and we are perfect. We're at about 45 minutes. Let's wrap up the way that we started. And your call to action as delegators, everybody watching now live and then watching on the replay, is we are now in the redelegation phase of this poll that is put together by the Cardano Foundation. Come to the Adastat website, look up your stake pool and see how they voted. If they didn't vote, then you should redelegate to a pool that is aligned with your personal philosophy of how you want to see the Cardano protocols moving forward. And if your pool did vote and it's not aligned with your view, redelegate to one that is. But please, everybody, make sure, at least just take like the 10 seconds and make sure that your stake pool operator is aligned with your views moving forward. For a lot of you, I think you're going to find when you come and look that your pool operator is right in line with the way you were thinking, and that's awesome. That should be for you a reinforcement of the delegator that you are staking with. You're like, oh, cool, sweet. They are in line with like how I am thinking, so there's nothing for me to do here, and that would be great. But take a second, be an active delegator, see how your pool voted, and then redelegate from there. Yeah, we will touch base back here in a week and see where the dust has settled this whole thing. And as always, as any updates on anything, we'll let you know. And yeah, exactly. That's a good way to end us. Thank you, Accelerate. There was the largest airdrop in all of history happened tonight. Everybody who delegates to a stake pool got airdropped some free ADA just for delegating. So we'll leave it there. Let me know on Twitter or anything and in the comments down below if there's any additional news that I missed this week that we should cover next week. We will see where this poll has left off when we get to that point. And yeah, have a great week, everybody. If nothing else, we'll see you next week. Have a good night. Bye.